I'm not seriously trying to get into trouble with the law, but I do need to begin by saying that mankind is made up of two sexes, male and female, men and women. Furthermore, I would like to add that these men actually do start out as boys, and that all the women start out as girls. All of this demonstrates remarkable evidences of an intentional design somewhere in the process. The purpose that God has in all of this is plain from the beginning. Our destinations are assigned to us. If you were born a boy, then this means that you were assigned the responsibility of growing up into a man. If you were born a girl, then this means that God intended for you at some point to become a woman. The Apostle Paul says that the good works that we were created to perform, Ephesians 2:10, are down the road waiting for us, and those good works vary according to the stations assigned. That includes obvious stations, divided according to sex. This means that not only are we to obey the Scriptures, which for Christians should go without saying, but we are also called to obey our chromosomes. Girls have an XX pattern in their chromosomes, while boys have an XY pattern. This pattern is given to us as a lifelong authority. Our chromosomes are the boss of us. The creation of man was teleological, which is a fancy way of saying that God had a particular intention and purpose for us that was revealed in the way that he designed us. A screwdriver is teleological in this sense, designed to drive in screws. A hammer is teleological in the same sense. It is designed to pound nails. Now this is what the Bible teaches. After God had created man, he gave to us what has come to be called the cultural mandate. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Genesis 1:28. This is the task that mankind was assigned. We were told to be fruitful and to multiply. We were told to subdue the earth, not ransack or strip mine it, which can be seen in the fact that we were told to replenish it. In addition, we were commanded to wield authority, dominion, over all the living creatures on earth. So this is what we are for. This is our mission. But it is striking that in the verse just prior to that cultural mandate, Genesis says this, quote, So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Genesis 1:27. The fact that we were created male and female is directly connected to the mission that God assigned to us at the beginning of the world. It was clear that Adam could not accomplish the mission all by himself. The world is very big, and so a foundational command in the cultural mandate is found in that word multiply. If God had simply told Adam, the solitary male, to multiply, it is fair to say that Adam would have been up against it. How was he supposed to do that? But with the creation of Eve, the mother of all the living, everything falls into place. The process of multiplying human beings can result, as we now see, in an awful lot of human beings. And when we look at what is involved in taking dominion over the whole earth, that is precisely what it was going to take. But in order for this to happen properly, we need to have a good understanding of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. The entry of sin into the world made this challenge and task that much harder, and the intellectual apostasy of our generation has made it next to impossible. God has told us that he placed his image on us, male and female, Genesis 1:27. This means all our current attempts to blur, redefine, erase, or outlaw the differences between the two sexes are, at bottom, a profound theological rebellion. We are like surly villagers in the valley who dislike the prince who lives in the castle on the hill. We don't have enough strength to attack him in his castle, although we would if we could, and so we settle for the next best thing. We cannot topple the prince, but we can burn him in effigy down in the valley. We cannot touch him, but we can destroy images of him. This is the meaning of our current rebellion, whether homosexual or transsexual or whatever the next thing might be. These are all attempts to strike at God by burning his image in effigy. As Christian parents, we therefore need to return to the basics, and that means bringing up boys to be men and girls to be women. In our current climate, this can be quite an uphill climb. In order for our sons and daughters to arrive where they ought to be going, they need to be given some idea of where it is they're going and why. It used to be the case that such things could be taken for granted because no serious person ever questioned it. But for a number of reasons, this has changed. The intellectual history of modernity, from the Enlightenment down to the present, has led us to the point where we are unsure of whether or not there is even such a thing as a girl, or a boy for that matter. It is worth pointing out that a generation that does not know what a boy or a girl is, or what a man and woman is also a generation that does not know what a human being is. Whatever this is, it is really bad. It is not our purpose to trace the history of this intellectual degradation, but rather simply to note that it has occurred and that hatred of God is behind it. What we intend to do here is set forth the biblical theology of boys and girls and see if we get arrested. In order to understand who and what we are, it is necessary to go back to the book of beginnings, back to the book of Genesis. Quote, "Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it." Genesis 2:15. We are going to come back to those words, tend and keep. But before doing that, let us set up the basic orientation between man and woman. Quote, "For man is not from woman, but woman from man. Nor was man created for the woman, but woman for the man." 1 Corinthians 11:8 and 9. The short form is this: the man was created to tend the garden, and the woman was created to tend the gardener. If he knows his business, he will love and care for her, the way Christ does the church, but he is still oriented toward his overall mission. She, on the other hand, is oriented toward him. The man tends to the mission, while the woman tends to the missionary. His assigned task is to accomplish something worthwhile out in the world, doing so in a manner that provides for his wife and family, while also protecting them. We can infer that he should do something worthwhile from the cultural mandate itself, which we have already noted, and we infer that he's supposed to provide and protect from the words tend and keep. When a man works or tends a garden, the end result of that labor is food, and downstream from the fact of food is the fact of dinner. This is where we get his responsibility to provide. The word keep means to guard or protect. As Richard Phillips put it, quote, "A man is not only to wield the plow, but also to bear the sword." But we must not think of this in a limited or truncated way. It is not that the man brings home the bacon and the woman does nothing more than make it hot and crispy. What happens is this: the man provides her with the raw foodstuffs, and then she, being who she is, receives it in order to glorify it. Quote, "For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, forasmuch as he is the image and glory of God. But the woman is the glory of the man." 1 Corinthians 11:7. Man is the glory of God, and the woman is the glory of that glory. How someone can think that the biblical roles assigned to men and women are somehow disparaging to women is simply beyond me. Yes, the husband is the head, Ephesians 5:23, but an excellent wife is his crown. Quote, "A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is as rottenness in his bones." Proverbs 12:4. Before discussing the vexed question of sex roles, we need to say a brief word about the impact of technology. While technology has saved us all a lot of labor, they are not called labor-saving devices for nothing, it has also created an optical illusion for us. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, the assignment of certain sex roles was a simple matter of survival. If you wanted the field to be plowed at all, the men were going to have to do it. That, in its turn, was related to whether there would be anything to eat that winter. You wanted the women to be hard workers as well, of course, and it was wonderful when a man found a 2-bucket woman, but you wanted them to be hard workers in the domestic setting. But here is the optical illusion created by technology. It is a matter of indifference to a modern tractor whether a man or a woman is driving it. When the horsepower that plowed the field in the old days was determined by actual horses, an ability to handle the horses was going to be a function of physical strength. But now, with the tractor, why would it matter to anybody who plows the field? The men usually still do it, but isn't that just a vestigial tradition? Just as the husband usually drives the car, but the wife is fully capable of doing it, isn't this just a quaint leftover? This question makes sense only if we assume that the differences between men and women are simply a matter of physical strength. But as Christians, we believe that God created us in a particular way, and He also gave us His word to follow. And when He gave us His word to follow, He did not add the proviso, quote, "but only until the Industrial Revolution." Women were created by God to be nurturers, wives, and mothers. We should assume that his good design did not just go into the physical makeup of women, although it did that as well, but also that it was woven into the spiritual, intellectual, and emotional framework of a woman's soul. This is why the older women were instructed to teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Titus 2, 4 and 5. And if this is where women should be, it is also where girls should be aimed. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. 1 Timothy 5:14. This does not make technological advances irrelevant to a woman's calling. She is blessed with computers, dishwashers, refrigerators, gas stoves, baby monitors, meat thermometers, and so on. Technology did not displace the wife as the executive of the home, but it did replace quite a few of the servants. In a similar way, if men are called to provide and protect, as discussed earlier, then this is where boys should be aimed. If men are called to work the ground and guard the harvest, then boys need to learn how to work and how to fight. A good litmus test to determine whether someone is thinking biblically about all of this is to find out what they think about Title IX sorts of requirements. The reason sports for boys and girls should be radically different is because, surprise, boys and girls themselves are just as radically different. Now, if men are called by God to provide for their families and to protect them, then it follows that boys will have to learn how to do these things. And if women are called by God to glorify what their men bring to them, then it follows that girls will have to learn how to do that. In addition, as I've taught for many years, parents are not simply to get their children to conform to the standard, they are to get their children to love the standard. What parents should be fundamentally after is buy-in. But there's an additional component. If the children are to grow up to love the task, they must also learn to love the training. Those who are called to battle are also called to boot camp. These roles we have been discussing are assigned to us by God, and so we should simply accept that. At the same time, it may profit us to drill down a little bit deeper. A boy who grows up to be a man can find himself in any number of vocational roles. He might be a lawyer, or a stonemason, or a pilot, and so on. But whatever calling he finds himself in, he must be masculine in his demeanor. And as girls grow up to be wives and mothers, as well as philanthropists and vineyard owners, Proverbs 31, 20, and 16, they must all accept the calling to be feminine. So how do we define those two words? Here's my stab at it. Masculinity is the glad assumption of sacrificial responsibility. Femininity is a glad responsiveness to masculine initiative, filling, helping, completing, and glorifying it. Masculinity is the demeanor that wants to embrace the tasks assigned to the male. Femininity is the demeanor that wants to embrace the tasks assigned to the female. Being a male is a biological reality, and when a boy obeys that reality, he is being masculine. The standard is set in the chromosomes, and masculinity is loving the standard. The same thing is true for the girls. Being female is something that can be determined by looking through a microscope. That sets the standard, and femininity is loving the standard. And we are always to love the standard. One, what does it mean to obey your chromosomes? It means to recognize that your sex was assigned to you by God and that this assignment is to be gratefully accepted, received, cultivated, and obeyed. 2. Where's the cultural mandate given in Scripture, and what does it require of us? The cultural mandate is first given to us in Genesis 1:28. It requires mankind to fill the earth, subduing and replenishing it, and exercising dominion over it. 3. What are we told just prior to the first statement of the cultural mandate? We are told that mankind was created in the image of God, male and female, Genesis 1:27. 4. What is meant by our culture's current rebellion against the assignment of two biological sexes? We cannot dethrone God from his position of supreme authority, and so in our rebellion we settled for the next best thing, which is to burn him in effigy. We do this by marring the image of male and female that he has placed in us through various sexual rebellions. 5. What two responsibilities did God assign to Adam in the garden? He was charged to, quote-unquote, tend and keep the garden. 6. What is the basic orientation of men and women? The man is fundamentally oriented to his task of tending the garden, and the woman is oriented to the task of tending the gardener. 7. What does it mean to tend and keep? Tending refers to farming, with the end result of food. Keeping means to guard or protect what you've gathered. 8. What is the relationship of glory to men and women, respectively? Man is the glory of God, and woman is the glory of the man. Man is the glory, and woman is the glory of the glory. 9. How did the development of technology create an optical illusion with regard to sex roles? And what is the biblical response to this illusion? Prior to the Industrial Revolution, a rigid approach to sex roles was a matter of survival. But with the development of tractors, a woman could plow the length of a field just as easily as a man can. The answer to this objection is that God assigned us different roles, calibrated to our entire natures. He did not do this, quote-unquote, until the Industrial Revolution. 10. Where does God require women to be domestic? Two texts for this would be Titus 2, 4 and 5, and 1 Timothy 5:14. 11. What is the basic task of parents? It is not only to teach their children to conform to the biblical standard, but to love the biblical standard. 12. What is masculinity and what is femininity? Masculinity is the glad assumption of sacrificial responsibility. Femininity is the glad responsiveness to masculine initiative, filling, helping, completing, and glorifying it. Both masculinity and femininity are forms of loving the standard.